What's up, everyone? Steven here from Techmaker.tv. In this episode, we're going to keep going with our checklist feature that we started in the last episode. As I said toward the end of the last episode, this video, or this little series rather, is going to probably be 3 or 4 parts, just getting the checklist feature added to our Notebooks app. I think in this one, we're basically just going to get the CRUD actions set up for creating checklist items for an individual checklist. And then in the next couple of parts, we're going to work on the design a bit because right now it's not looking too great. And we're also going to work on the ability to update the status of checklist items using stimulus reflex. So it's going to be pretty cool. I think at the end it's going to be pretty nice, but you're going to have to bear with me through a couple more episodes of getting the foundation laid. All of that being said, as always, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like this. And definitely subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with what we're doing. All of that said, let's jump in and get started. Alright, so to get started, let's jump back over to our terminal. I'm going to go ahead and stop my server. And we're going to create a new scaffold yet again, and this one is going to be called checklist item. So I'm going to create a scaffold checklist item. It's going to belong to a checklist naturally, so it's going to say checklist references. It's also going to have a, well, should we call it title or should we call it content? Let's just call it a title. Keep it simple for now. And then we're going to give it a status, which is also going to be a string. And actually, I meant to run that without the views. So let's run Rails D, which is destroy. We'll run G again and say skip template engine. That should create the same thing without views. And again, I need to go and delete this scaffolds.scss. So let's go check that out. Where's my code here? Okay, so let me go ahead and get rid of this scaffolds CSS, and I'm going to close down all the rest of these files for now. Back in the terminal, I'm going to run my migrations that were just created. Once that's done, let's go ahead and start our server again. And what I want to do is open up my routes. So I'm just going to start by moving these things down because they actually belong to the checklist here. So now we're going to have these nested inside of checklists. Okay, so now, as you can see, this is quite deeply nested, and I think we might come back and add shallow routes later to make this a little bit cleaner. But for now, I'm just going to leave it because it's going to be functional. Okay, so let's go over and look at our show page again for our pages. So what I want to do is whenever we're rendering this checklist title here, I want to below that, potentially even outside of the context of the form here, maybe I want to kind of down below this, I'm going to add another form. So I'm going to make this say something. I'm going to put a div here, and maybe we'll just call this like checklist item form or something like that. And I'm going to copy my form right here. And this is going to get edited, and we're going to just inside of here say something like checklist items. Maybe let's just call it checklist.new item, and then we'll write a method for that on the checklist. So we'll say checklist, and then in here we need to say has many checklist items, and then we can have a method new item, and this will say checklist items.build, something like that. It's kind of different, but it's probably okay. And then we'll just say that it has a title, and then a text field for title, and let's comment out this cancel. So let's go back and refresh and see what this looks like. Make sure our server's running. So if I just refresh here, let's see. So now I get a new form here, and I'm gonna go ahead and do one thing. I'm gonna add a just a, how should we do this? A p tag, maybe. Now let's make it like a h5 and then bold, and we'll say add a new checklist item. So as I said in the last episode, we'll be doing more episodes soon where we clean up the design, but for now I just want to kind of get this functional. And actually, you know what? I'm kind of tired of being at the bottom of this page. So what's the date today? June 22nd. Let's make a new note, June 22nd, 2020. And let's add a checklist right here. So we actually need a little bit of text here saying click here to add text. But let's say this is a checklist. Okay, then we have add a new checklist item. Let's try to add something. So we'll say like do the dishes. And let's see what happened in our server. So we can see that it did a post and then we hit an internal server error. Let's see if it actually saved though. Let's do rails c checklist item.count. No, it did not. So let's go take a look at exactly what went wrong in our server. So let's go to checklist items controller. So we get here checklist item.new. I would bet that it's gonna say so here's a sort of debugging trick we can do. We can add a exclamation point to save here. And let's go back and try to do that again. So let's say do the dishes. And if we click save now, it should give us a little more details about what's going on here. So see here we get this active record validation, checklist must exist. So this is getting us to where we want to be. So let me make sure, that may have said that up here and I just missed it, but I didn't see it. No, I think it's that exclamation point's giving us that level of detail there. So let's fix this. So to do that, we need to open up our checklist controller. Here, we can get all of these things right there. So I don't actually need new, edit, show, or index. And when I remove those, I need to actually get rid of them here also. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So we're getting a notebook, we're getting a page, our checklist. We actually should grab that from the update, and then that's still not going to be right. So we'll say checklist ID, and then checklist item is going to be checklist. How can we do this? Checklist dot checklist items dot build checklist item params. And actually, let's just do create, and then let's redirect to, and what will the path be? It should be the same as over here, right? The notebook page path, like that, and then we can get rid of all of this. And I can see that I have one too many of these redirect tos here, so let me go ahead and fix that. It's not going to like that very much. Okay, so let's go try this now. So, well, actually, we need to do one more thing. Underneath this, I'm going to do another div checklist items. And then we'll just say, let's say checklist items each do checklist item. Okay, and then we'll just say give us a p tag with the title, like that. Okay, so undefined method checklist item, that needs to be plural. Okay, now So we also need to check if these are persisted. Because there shouldn't actually be any created yet. And I need to make that say title. Okay, so let's add a new checklist item. Let's say do the dishes, and you can see now that's showing up below. Answer emails. So you can see that this is essentially hooked up now. Okay, so let's do a couple of things real quick. I'm not going to keep this, but just for the moment, I want to create something that is a little bit more reasonable to look at here. So we'll say class equals table, and then we'll give it a table header of title, and then maybe do like call span equals, what do we want to do, 2 or 3? Let's do 2 for now. And then right here, let's bump this down to the bottom. Okay, so now what I want to do is for each checklist item, if it's persisted, we're going to create a new table row, and we'll create a table cell. Like that. And then I want to add a delete button for now. So we'll say link to delete. And what's the path for this? It's going to be some really, really long name. So let's open up a new tab, do Rails routes, and then checklist item. I want to grep checklist item. Let's see what this gives us. It's going to be some really long stuff. So, notebook page checklist item. I think. Yeah, so that's the plural. I just want the singular down here. So then we're going to say link to delete, notebook page checklist item path. And then I'm going to have to pass in at notebook, at page, checklist, and then checklist item. So that's a lot of stuff to be passing in. This is where our shallow routes that I may set up would help us out a bit. But I got a couple of things I want to think about before I just go ahead and do that. And then what we need to do is say method delete, and then we can give that a data confirm, are you sure, like that. And now we should be able to delete this thing. So, but before we mess with that, let's come in here and fix all of this stuff to be right. So actually, let's go ahead and just get rid of that and paste this in. And then this is going to say find params ID. I've talked about routes in other videos before, so if you're not sure how this is working, well, I don't remember exactly where I explained it, so I'll just try to tell you. So this is the route we're looking at here, this notebook page thing. So here you have slash notebooks with colon notebook ID, page ID, checklist ID, so on and so forth. So these essentially correspond as variables to what we're pulling out of the params here, in a nutshell. So what we want to do is basically say checklist item dot destroy and then redirect. So let's go try this out. So if I delete do the dishes, let's see what happens here. So now we kind of have basically our essential create, read, update, delete stuff hooked up, but it's all just in this page. Actually, that's not quite right because we don't actually have a way to edit ASDF here or our checklist items. So right now we just have create and delete set up. So I'm going to hold off on setting the update up until later because because I don't want to get too in the weeds with the UI stuff right now, and that's going to be kind of a click and edit in the same page as this, but it's going to be a little more involved, I think. Also, I'm not committed to the design of these things yet, so I don't want to take the time to like build out JavaScript until I'm settled on the UI a little bit more. Um, so let's see. I'm thinking that what I'm gonna have to do, because this looks kind of uh, off to me right now. Like there's parts of this app that look pretty decent. Like this top bit looks fairly clean. I want to restructure this stuff up here, that all these top items, and I want to change these for icons and stuff like that. But it doesn't look terrible. This looks kind of messed up, just in terms of the structure and everything. I think what I'm gonna do is take one episode, so it'll be part 3 for this checklist feature, and I'm going to make it where we're going to essentially style this somehow. So I need to take some time and create a design for it, and then I'll build it out. So we'll have that, and then in part 4, what we're going to do is add essentially a drop down where you can change the status, probably over here somewhere or in the middle, depending on how the design shapes up. And we'll use stimulus reflex for that, so you can change the status and it'll just live update a bunch of stuff on the screen. So these checklist sections are going to have a status bar somewhere showing your progress. Um, so I think that's going to be pretty cool. But we will have to get to that in the next episode. This one's also, I don't know how long this episode is. I bet it's 15 or 20 minutes by now. So with all that said, I hope you're looking forward to building more onto this app, and thanks for following up to this point, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.